We had yesterday a very important visit in Sarajevo, in our capital, where the NATO Secretary General, Mr. Anders Fogh Rasmussen, paid a visit, and he had a bilateral meeting with all important political factors in Bosnia and Herzegovina. He thanked Bosnia and Herzegovina and its counterparts for Bosnia and Herzegovina contribution to NATO mission in Afghanistan. And I would say that he leaves Sarajevo more optimistic than he came to Sarajevo, and stated that he is encouraged to hear that all political leaders reaffirmed the commitment to the agreement on immovable defense property and their determination to implement it as soon as possible. To talk about Bosnia and Herzegovina as a multicultural, confessional, multinational country that I live in, I cannot talk and help but look back on the same country that I was born in, and I which lived in very nice country of Yugoslavia. What was former Yugoslavia, also multicultural, multinational, today is Bosnia, but the concept of multinationalism and multiculturalism was not able to survive in Yugoslavia. While in Bosnia and Herzegovina, still after 18 years, since the end of the war, it has not been established fully. Because of that, part of, as I already mentioned, presentation will be on that, the breakup of Yugoslavia, and since today multinational Bosnia and Herzegovina was formed on foundation of disintegrated multinational Yugoslavia. And I'm sure that if we look at the problems of Yugoslavia realistically, we could develop Bosnia and Herzegovina on its constitutional basis potential in one new political, historical, and economical context for the welfare of all the people living in Bosnia and Herzegovina. From the way that Yugoslavia split, and in some way is still splitting, it shows that mutual relation among us were deep, multiply, and that a good basis existed for the upgrade and organization of the country. Unfortunately, which didn't happen, like in many former communist countries of Eastern Europe, while today happily exist. Meanwhile, the territory of Yugoslavia was renamed into Western Balkans. I agreed with my Croatian colleagues when he asked, when he raised the question, where is the Eastern Balkan? Huh? But I really don't know. Which still question is in history and seeks for the future in a series of complex. The search for truth concerning the cause of conflict in former Yugoslavia is ongoing, and mainly to be able to build real relation. This is really a question with what kind of truth would we all agree in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which can lead us to a better future, so that the past doesn't repeat itself. Does it exist? What are the values of the former country which can bond us in the future and which can be the basis in Bosnia? When we talk about the death of the Yugoslavia, we need to look back on its birth, international context, and the environment in which it was born. First, Yugoslavia was formed in a period when in a few years from the world historical map and scene, 4 empires disappeared. Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, Russian, and German empire. The second Yugoslavia occurs when the historical empires were replaced with ideological empires. When the world was bipolarly divided between the Eastern Bloc, which was led by the USSR, and the Western Bloc, led by the USA. The third Yugoslavia is characterized by the period of birth of economy empires, globalization, and completely new modus vivendi in contemporary world. From the beginning of Yugoslavia, ongoing inter-ethnic conflicts, and it's always a shock to the country. Serbs had one, and Croatians another vision of Yugoslavia. The process of consolidation of the first Yugoslavia lasted pretty long. Second Yugoslavia was federation, which was maintained by ideological unity and one-party system. The interest of Serbs in entering Yugoslavia was that all Serbs could finally live together in one country, and Croatians that they got to save their territories from the territorial aspiration of neighboring countries. The main problem, especially of second Yugoslavia, were national and problems of true federalization of the country. And the problems they started appearing when the true federalization was happening, neglecting major political, economic, and national problems, which lead to the creation of critical mass and energy, which culminated and couldn't be controlled. In first Yugoslavia, communism was banned. It appeared later and came to the power in second Yugoslavia, where nationalism was banned, but was formed illegally. And at the end of 80s, beginning, and the 90s, it had its expansion and came to the power. In the all former Yugoslav Republic countries, especially in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Many believe that the flare-up of nationalism in former Yugoslavia occurred because of the war, crimes committed in the Second World War about which the full truth never had been said. The painful experience makes us face with what happened in the last war in Yugoslavia, that question should not be prolonged, that the past must be cleared so that the mortgage of the past would be carried into the future to put a burden on the generation to come. Beginning of 90s, before the breakup, the crisis in Yugoslavia culminated. Nationalism with geopolitical change on the world scene, demolition of the Berlin Wall, 1989, repeal of communism in USSR, and the new historic epoch occurred new relation, and Yugoslavia lost its geostrategic world on which it built its future. The best examples is non-alien movement in those years when Yugoslavia had the leading role, which overnight turned into the irrelevant political movement. A new world was formed, where it was necessary to fight for a new international positions and new allies. Unfortunately, there was not any individual capacity which would recognize that moment and which would, with struggle on the plan of foreign policy, international affirmation, stop the disintegration of the country. How it is possible, for example, for the Soviet Union, which is an amazing mix of nations with completely different cultures, to split in a peaceful way, and for Yugoslavia, where people with close cultural tradition live, to split with so much violence and blood. The breakup of Yugoslavia coincides with the breakup of communism in countries of Eastern Europe. At once, the communist ideology disappeared after 50 years, creating a gap which was to be filled. And nationalism came as an ideal way to fill the gap. Since it was increasingly present, and the only thing left was for it to formalize through the democratic elections in the political life of the country, and the terrible ring the disappearance of Yugoslavia. We take into consideration also the behavior and influence of the international community, institution, organization. They understanding or misunderstanding what's happened and what's going and what will be in the future in the former Yugoslavia. The area of former Yugoslavia has been crossroad through the history of various civilizations, a subject of interest for East and West, and unfortunately, area of clashes of interest. The development of Yugoslavia was followed, assessed, how much of an influence can have on interest of the countries that saw former Yugoslavia as a subject of their own interest. Various predictions existed concerning the future Yugoslavia, which dated from 80s, when reports from certain intelligence agencies predicted war and breakup of Yugoslavia at the beginning of 90s. I find the one report of the Trilateral Commission from 1977. It was stated that due to the lack of tacit agreement between East and West about the future of Yugoslavia, and because of the importance of the country for the European balance, Yugoslavia should be observed as the most exclusive part of Europe. It was in 1977. For a very long time, the thesis ruled that the breakup of Yugoslavia is the consequence of international factor. But the new works indicate that the West was largely caused by the war in Yugoslavia and its breakup, and that series of wrong steps derived from the fact. Those are beliefs that the war could have been avoided if West would have had a clear concept of what what to do with Yugoslavia at the moment when the crisis began. The problem is that no consistent West policy existed. Various different views existed, but not only between the policies of the main West countries, but even between certain state policies. That was for sure better circumstance. The position of West countries on the Yugoslavian crisis should be also perceived in a historical context. We should go 150 and more years back, when the issue of inheritance of Ottoman Empire arose, whose withdrawal from Balkan could have been predicted already mid-19th century. A series of international agreements, conferences starting from Berlin to Versailles, Yalta, Potsdam, shows that leading European countries did not have a functional consensus in terms of solving the political status of Balkan countries. That is visible today also. I believe it's necessary for the European countries to come to a consensus in terms of Balkan. As for us, as for they only. So that Balkan in future doesn't produce crises which necessarily flows to Europe. I believe that the question of the political modernization is the main question of the people that live in this area of Balkan region, former Yugoslavia states. And I'm afraid that the 20th century can be observed as lost for the South Slavic people. Since it was proved that the political idea that existed on this area wasn't correspondent with the time. We live in some shapes of political and other utopia which could look pink at one time. We turn to the past instead of looking to the future. But that doesn't mean that each of us should give up from our national identity. On the contrary, Europe doesn't imply that because Europe itself rests of national and cultural identities. In order to see where Bosnia and Herzegovina is now, like I said in the introduction, we goes back in the past and we find almost the same to the problems Bosnia and Herzegovina is facing today, what was the problem of Yugoslavia. First of all, conflict between different ethnic groups due to the different views of the common state, future of the state, and efficiency to save national interests of each constitutional nation. Second, disagreement on the constitutional order of the country, neglectance on solving major political, economic, national problems of the country, and then, as the last, economic crisis. The last and not the least, lack of functional consensus of the international community in the solving political situation. The similarity is astonishing, cautionary, disturbing, but it also indicates in which direction Bosnia and Herzegovina should go. Should act urgently without delay, that should not be questioned. Bosnia and Herzegovina is supposed to be a country where each individual would feel it as their own. A country in which all the people can achieve their goals. If the leaders of political parties in Bosnia and Herzegovina don't act fast in resolving important questions, Bosnia and Herzegovina risks of becoming a black hole in Western Balkans. This was mentioned in part of a resolution about the political situation on Balkan, which refers to Bosnia and Herzegovina, adopted the General Assembly of the Council of Europe in October 2011. Today, a year and a half later, the situation has not changed. After a standstill in government formation, Council of the Ministers after the last election held in 2010, the standstill lasted for more than 1 year, which Bosnia and Herzegovina and Belgium beat all the records in Europe. After Office of High Representative, inability to cope in such situation, Bosnia recently got a new parliamentary majority and a new hope for Bosnia and Herzegovina. The constitution and the election law of Bosnia and Herzegovina do not allow yearly election. However, at the end of the last year, positive changes which rose hope happened. The budgets for the years 2012 and 2013 had been adopted, and it had not been political agreement for the budget 2012, which is a unique case and success of parliamentary majority. The leaders of the new six in the coming period till the election in 2014 committed on bringing constitutional provision which would secure full equality of all three nations and others, including harmonization of the constitution with decision of European Human Rights Court in the case Sejdić-Finci, in a way which we provide an election of all legitimate representatives into the House of People and the Presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Part of the agreement is harmonization of the legislation with standards of European Union in the execution of obligation for the roadmap, as well as urgently to establish a model of coordination with European Union. A part of an agreement of the new six majority is to provide implementation of already signed agreements from March last year, which refer to state and military properties I already mentioned from the beginning of the speech. European Union stands on the common position that if Bosnia and Herzegovina in the coming period does not apply the verdict of European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, made a few years ago, which refers to the right of others, that the results of general election in 2014 will not be recognized by the European Union because European standards were not applied in that case. The current situation leaves serious consequences for the economy and country's credit rating. In addition to that, the national disasters, flooding, droughts, huge snowfalls have hit Bosnia and Herzegovina last year, which blocked the country and the economy. I have some economical, some data, but I will not go through this right now, and I will go to the conclusion maybe to give you more time for question. But I will say that economical development of Bosnia and Herzegovina, due to the prolonged recession in the Eurozone, which is expected to be very harsh in the year of 2013, won't be very fast, and the negative effect of the recession is expected to hit Bosnia and Herzegovina in 2013. The World Bank, from the beginning of crisis in 2009, is trying to help the countries of West Balkan, which are amongst the most affected European countries. Financial support is increased in the regional countries, as well as a consultation how to face the situation in the best way. We do not, in Bosnia, have control on what's happening in the Eurozone. But we could first of all, implement some reforms this year, and we should do that, which will help to recover faster and accelerate the economical growth. Those reforms, first of all, refer to decreasing financing consumption through the public expenditure. Instead, public expenditure would go towards investment in economic growth, health, and education. On another side, it's necessary to improve conditions in getting building permits to work with questions which investors see as an investment restriction, which would allow fast entry of investment and new money, what actually we need to come into the Bosnia and Herzegovina economy. Conclusion. Inter-ethnic conflicts exist in Bosnia and Herzegovina due to the different views of the common state. Not even one of the three constituent nations living in Bosnia and Herzegovina do not see their country in the same way, which is the main problem. The question of constitutional order, entity, voting in joint institution, Bosnia and Herzegovina administrative and territorial organization. Some want for Bosnia and Herzegovina to be a centralized country. Others want to see Bosnia decentralized. While some want to change the structure of the Dayton Peace Agreement, and in Bosnia and Herzegovina, instead of two, maybe have three entities. After the parliamentary election in October last year, the question of constitutional reform led to a complete blockade and lack of consensus about the key issues on development of the state. Consensus in Bosnia and Herzegovina is the key word for the future of the country. Consensus. And substantial functional consensus of the international community of future development of Bosnia and Herzegovina also must exist. The question of centralization or decentralization of Bosnia should also be decided in democratic debates and procedure of those who it concerns, the most of the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Everyone else, guarantors of the Dayton Peace Agreement, wide international community, should help the legitimately elected leadership to make and implement decisions which would be the best and of interest of people living in common state. Bosnia and Herzegovina should strengthen its economy, that is a sine qua non, conditio sine qua non, to be economically independent and self-sustaining, to use its natural, human, geographical, historical, national resources which should be its advantage, not disadvantage compared to other countries for former Yugoslavia. Bosnia and Herzegovina came to an international consensus toward joining the European Union and Euro-Atlantic integration, and there is an urgent need to continue with other consensuses. The European Union and Eurozone are currently in huge temptation, and 2013 will be one of the key years for the future stability and for the future of European Union project. When we talk about euro integration, we find ourselves in an interesting situation. The countries of Western Balkan, including Bosnia and Herzegovina, strive towards the European Union. At the same time, UK announced a referendum for the year of 2017 concerning the status of the UK. And also in Germany, it was recently stated that the expansion of EU on East should be stopped after the admission of Croatia, which is, of course, has negative influence on all what we are doing towards integration. But, however, it's important to know that the economy is the key factor for future development of Bosnia and Herzegovina towards. Receiving candidate status this year has a key influence on further processes, since after getting the candidate status, minimum 6 to 10 years should pass before entering, and that's the period which Bosnia and Herzegovina should use to build its economic and political system. This is for our sake, not for the sake of EU or others, but once we get that in, then we will be accepted by the European Union also. Bosnia and Herzegovina should build all other European Union standards on which we are doing now. European diplomats ensure us every day that Bosnia and Herzegovina is part of Europe and that European Union project will not be finished until Bosnia and Herzegovina and the whole region do not become full members. As an important step forward toward the European Union is surely the visa liberalization for the citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the advantage which citizens enjoy and show benefit of European Union process. And I don't want to finish, but I have to finish. Bosnia and Herzegovina should be a country which everyone would feel as their own country, where every person, nation, will be able to reach their goals and achieve interest. It is a country with a future which has a lot of friends in the world, which helped Bosnia and Herzegovina, and which are ready to continue helping, like I mentioned, our friends from Hungary. Thank you very much for your attention.